Hi everybody, thank you for joining us for our third installment of the CRISP webinar summer series. My name is Michelle Rubin and I'll be your guide through the webinar series. This is an opportunity for you, our users, to learn about CRISP, how we can help you and your patients, and directly interact with CRISP staff. If you missed the first two webinars, please go to YouTube and find our channel, CRISP Health. A few housekeeping items. Everybody is on mute. So if you have any questions along the way, please use the chat box on the right. We'll answer them at the end of the presentation and get to as many as possible. We may not get to all questions, so we'll consolidate all questions and answers and send them out to this group and post them on our website. This webinar is being recorded, so if you miss anything, don't fret. We will distribute the slides, recording, and Q&A by email and post them on our website, crisphealth.org. Look out for a brief survey, and please fill it out so we can improve the series. The comments so far have been very helpful. So to help you understand CRISP's goals in cybersecurity and what that means for you, today's webinar topic is CRISP Cyber, how to not be that guy. Our presenter today is Jesse Mayer, cyber architect, security architect, and our resident cyber dungeon master. Jesse, take it away.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. How are you guys doing today? Happy Wednesday to all of our viewers, both here on Zoom and over on YouTube. Thank you for coming and hanging out with us. I want to give a quick shout out and lots of love to Michelle and Ryan for being awesome and throwing this webinar series together. It's an absolute pleasure to come and hang out with you guys today and talk cyber. So let's dive right in. Today's presentation, as Michelle said, is cyber and how to not be the dude. Now, the dude is a term that we use loosely for the guy that causes compromises from doing something that they obviously took training for a week earlier. So we're going to go into a little bit of that, as well as an example from the real world of how you can not be the dude. So, introduction. Hi, I'm down here. I'm the cybersecurity architect for CRISP. There will be memes and pop culture references in this presentation. We're also going to cover why we do training, what's it for, and why we make passwords so complex. I know there have been a lot of questions to cyber about why we have 2FA and 7 to 12 character minimums and all these different character requirements. We're going to go over why that's important and the math behind it. And I know that there's a lot of hate towards cyber. As you can see from the picture to the left of your screen, inconvenience is equal to security. There's nothing convenient about us at all. And I'm sorry to bring the inconvenient cake to the party, but that's what cyber does, and I'm more than happy to come and be able to explain a little bit of why we go into that. So what actually is cybersecurity really at the core? And there's some image and perception issues here for what people think we do and what we really do. And as you can see from these two pictures, there's a huge difference. We're not kids sitting in like a bat cave, even though right now I'm sitting in the CRISP bat cave. And we have a ton of data to work with. Part of security is understanding across the environment how everything from the data level, the network level, and the people level all works to each other, and how that data all interacts. So cyber at its core is all about creating a holistic culture that allows everyone to work together to create a multi-layered, multi-tiered security posture. And we want to create a comprehensive wall of defense components at every level. And the base level of that is, of course, you, our users. Training and awareness is critical to this puzzle. And one of the cyber mantras that we follow in the field is there is no patch for human stupidity. The majority of compromises happen from simple mistakes in daily routine, from not having that critical awareness of just your surroundings on the internet. So diving into how this affects you as a ULP or an ENS user, let's talk about Tim. I know this is Ryan's favorite user. We're going to talk about the life of a doctor and ULP user. Meet Tim Timmies. He's one of the many ULP practicers who have their own practice. He's a great doctor, loved by all of his patients, and he uses private practice email for ULP access. His email, drtimrocks@gmail.com. We've got about 30 to 40% of our users actually use their personal emails for access to ULP. And one of the reasons why we want to focus on this is because we realize that in the normal world, you multiply that by 6 to 7 services, and that's 6 or 7 different places you possibly would use your password and your email credentials. So, Dr. Tim cruises on the internet, gets an email. The deal of the century appears. What is it? 1,000 free photos. You're not going to turn that down. It's free, right? And Tim wants to redecorate, so it's picture time. Tim signs up for the service using his personal email account. He gets 1,000 free prints. His clinic is now renovated with a ton of pictures of his adventures around the world. He also did his office and his house and his neighbor's house and his kids' dorm rooms. And that's where the problem starts. Let's enter the disaster. During lunch a few months later, Dr. Tim discovers a news article regarding the photo company he had used. They were breached, and his credentials had been floating on the internet somewhere for 2 months. It's 2 months, right? What's the worst that could possibly happen here? Enter the dude. Dark web shopping trip, right? It's literally like picking up milk. There are hundreds of thousands of records for sale in batches, and PHI is one of the most expensive and commonly sought after groups of compromised data. Why is this? Well, you can cancel your credit card, you can change your address, you can get a new bank account, but you can't change your social security number. And this amount of data is going for huge sums of money on the dark web right now. Now we get to meet Misha. Misha found Tim's credentials on the dark web when she purchased an all-access pack. She knows through LinkedIn and a simple Google search that Dr. Tim owns a clinic in Maryland. So she logs into his ULP account and begins to exfiltrate patient data to sell on the dark web. Super easy, she has full access, and she's confirmed as a ULP user now. Now, Misha gets to celebrate her Cyber Christmas. Dr. Tim was consistently bad across the board. His ULP credentials are now in the hands of Misha. She resets all of them, and while she's in her Gmail account, realizes that there's a lot of other nifty information there, like Dr. Tim's bank of account, his Wells Fargo business account, his personal HSAs, his retirement fund. So what does she do? She goes across the board and she starts resetting all of Tim's accounts. She changes Google password and 2FA to her own phone. Tim is now owned. Misha is celebrating Christmas early now that she has sold all of ULP patient data, which is at a current going rate of about $450 a record. So for every 10,000 records, she's netting about $500,000 in easy funds with very minimal effort. So let's start fixing the puzzle here. What pieces were missing? What did Dr. Tim do wrong? What could he have done to better protect himself? Let's start with our first Star Wars meme of the day. Let the InfoSec violations flow through you. Rule number 1. Use different passwords for every service in the board. Never use the same password for everything. This is a commonly used mistake that a lot of users across the board do. And the reason for that is convenience. As we said on slide 1, security is nothing but convenient. We are a major inconvenience. Authentication and authorization. Now, we want to talk a little bit about complexity with passwords. Because one of the questions that we've been getting regularly is, why do we have such stringent complexity requirements? So let's start doing the math around this. With a 5-character password, from A to Z, you've got 26 possible characters. When you string those out as a permutation, you have 11.8 million combinations, which seems like a lot. The average password cracker on a rainbow table is 8 to 10 gigs for a batch download. That 8 to 10 gigs will give you 110 million password combinations. So at 5 characters, it takes probably about 10 to 12 minutes to crack it. Now, if you add in capital A to Z and lowercase a to Z, double that to 52, even at a 5-character password, that exponentially goes up to 380 million possible combinations. That's a lot more. Now, if you add in the numbers and then the random characters that you can generate with it, that gives us, at a 5-character password, 1.5 billion possible combinations, which is way more than what most people are willing to put in from a time constraint, especially if you're not a target of interest. Now, if you go to a 7-character password with all of those requirements, your 11.8 million option just went to 7.4 trillion combinations. And that is a massive amount of backbone and work that it takes to crack your password now. So when we set requirements that are 9 to 12 character passwords, we're doing that with the intent to dissuade people from trying to break into them, because it's going to cost significant time and resources to do so. We also want you to diversify your protection. Changing your password every 90 days ensures that your password is not sitting out on any compromised website for more than 90 days if you're compromised. Do not share passwords between services such as ULP and Google and Bank of America or Hotmail and YouTube. I know we have a lot of people on YouTube watching right now. I see you guys, you're awesome. Thanks for coming in. If you're using your YouTube password right now, make sure that as you do conjoin services, don't just log in with Facebook. Don't use your Google or Hotmail logins to sign into every service, because that creates a simple single profile that's a single point of failure. And when one of those goes, all of them go with it, unfortunately. Follow your complexity requirements. If you can Google yourself and part of your password, chances are it's not secure. And finally, 2FA. Two-factor authentication is the second part of authentication and authorization. Your password is what authorizes you to use the account, or authenticates you rather. And then 2FA will come and say, hey, is this you? Enter this code. And that's where you authorize the access to your account. So if someone compromises your password, you're going to get an email to your phone or a text or asked to put in a special PIN that only you have access to. And this is just an additional step to confirm that it is actually you who is putting in your password. Phishing. Phishing is a major subject that I know we could spend probably an hour talking about. A lot of people like to live dangerously. I do not. And there are certain times of years where these are more prevalent than others. You have legitimately illegitimate emails. They can be cleverly crafted to look like a standard email you may receive from a vendor, a partner, or any of the services that you actually subscribe to. Now, it's often difficult to tell at first glance whether or not it is legitimate or illegitimate, so we're going to go over one of these real quick and break down the structure of a phishing email. So looking before you leave, this is an email that we used as a phishing test in February of this year. And it says, your payroll details need updating. Please click below to start the update. Now, we sent this one out on a Monday morning, and we know that Monday is generally the day where time cards go in for a lot of companies. So it says, we've recently upgraded our ACE payroll system. As a security measure, we need you to reconfirm your bank routing details for your account nominated to receive your salary. Please review and enter your routing details at the link above by clicking on the Update Your Account Details button. Now, there are a couple things wrong with this and a couple easy ways that you can find out if something is legitimate or not. The first is to look at headers, but we're not going to go into that because it's a little more inclusive and requires a few extra steps and difficulties. So what we're going to do instead is the simplest way possible to analyze an email. You would expect this email to go to ACE, right? It's an ACE payroll, so it should be an ACE website. This one is portal.payrolltooling.com/ID and a long string of characters. Chances are, especially noticing that it's a long string of characters, one, it's HTTP, so it's not secure. Anything dealing with banking or personal data, all major websites are all HTTPS. They all have that extra security package. The portal.payrolltooling.com, not ACE. So the first thing you want to do is, instead of clicking on the link, go to the ACE link in your browser manually. And by doing that, you can confirm whether or not there was actually an update or if there's anything that you need to do. Don't listen to what the email tells you to do, because chances are 99% of the time it's not a legitimate email. And this will save you a lot of headache and a lot of security trouble. Now, talking about what we're doing towards this, one of the things that I wanted to focus on with this presentation was, what are we as Crisp Cybersecurity doing to help protect all of our user data, our customer data, and the public health data of our region? Now, security and encryption requirements on all segments of our architecture that touch any PHI is huge for us. We ensure through a SINIP process that everything that comes into our environment is secured, encrypted, and has file and data integrity from the ground up. And we ensure that through carefully vetting all incoming data sets to ensure that the highest standards are met. We require all access to our internal data center to go through secured single access data points to ensure that no one maliciously or inadvertently accesses any of the PHI data that we hold. We do testing and processing that have granted us several certifications and accreditations such as High Trust. We have password complexity requirements that must be met before gaining access, and we stringently enforce those. Even on our own data center and our own admins, if it's not met, your account gets turned off immediately. And we stick that to a T. I know a lot of our guys, even internally, it's a pain to deal with, but it's something that we do because we ensure that even from the ground up, we are following our own rules. We have two-factor authentication for all enterprise-level global administrators. No one can ever sign in at a domain level without having 2FA on. What's coming? We're currently in the pilot mode for two-factor authentication, and we're beginning to slowly roll that out. We have a dynamic data loss prevention solution in test phases that's going into the data center that will allow us to uncover any potential PHI or PII data that is unencrypted. We do bi-monthly phishing training against all CRISP employees, and we have active black box, gray box, and white box pen tests by a trusted third party that come in every quarter or so. And what this does is it allows a group outside of us to do two stages of different testing. The first one is to act as a advanced persistent threat targeting CRISP as if they were a malicious actor. And they're giving no resources, no network maps, nothing, just straight blind attacking to see what they can exfiltrate from the CRISP environment. The second part of this, they come internal and we give them access to our data center and to a lot of our resources and say, if you already had access, what can you do? What is the scope of the compromise that you could give us? And this helps us take a different holistic approach to moving laterally and ensuring that our data is compromised so that we can build better protections from the inside out. So this gives us two parts. The first one is looking outside in, which allows us to look at our perimeter and understand all of our extra data points and our web presence. And the second one is a hardening of our foundation from the internal up. And these two together really allow us to create a comprehensive review of what we're doing per quarter. Next part, one of the huge parts of cybersecurity is the mindset that it will never happen to me. That is the first thing said at the beginning of a compromise. Like, why did this happen? This shouldn't have happened. What did we do wrong? Healthcare breaches are on the rise, especially in America. Just in 2018, they've risen from 21 in January to almost 30 in March. We haven't got the second quarter report yet, and we're going to be adding more to this after the quarter two report comes out. But the Verizon Data Breach Investigation Report confirmed that it is on the rise, and more breaches are caused by insiders than advanced hackers. 2018 compromises have been on the rise with unauthorized access to closures, loss of devices and records, and improper disposal incidents. They were behind about 65 to 70% of the incidents reported. And across the board, just in March, I think there were 20 of the 30 that were reported. And I know we've got a quote that says, problem exists between keyboard and share. This is really true in this situation because there is user error involved here. All three of these, the unauthorized access into closures, the loss of device records, and improper disposal, that is all human error. There's no high-tech compromise, there's no ransomware, there's no hacking or malicious actor in Russia or China. It's all 100% internal. And we want to make sure that we help create that holistic cyber culture from the ground up that we were talking about earlier on in the presentation. Now, knowing that we have all of these different controls coming into place, we really want to talk about, for a moment, why we're doing that. And I know that we're coming to the end and getting ready to be right into the question phase, but hackers can hit you anywhere, from attacks like spear phishing, which are targeted emails. You've got waterholing attacks. There was a waterholing attack back when I was in undergrad where there was a pizza place next to one of the bases that got compromised. And what the enemy did was they put malware inside a PDF up on the website. Everyone has to eat. Just because you can't get into their systems doesn't mean you can't compromise them. So the base was compromised because they were surfing the web and came to the restaurant to get food. Someone booted up the menu, and lo and behold, dropped JavaScript-based malware on their systems. You have to pay attention to your training. A lot of people will click through training. I ask that you please don't do that. The training is important, and there's a lot of really niche details in there that will help you secure both yourself, your environment, and your data. Be vigilant and recognize that you shouldn't rely just on technology to protect you. You are the best protection to your network and to your system and yourself. You're the first line of defense protecting your enterprise. So please don't be the dude. And every environment, every industry, every business has a security team. Please, if you have any questions about an email or a website, or you want to know more about something that could potentially be malicious or harmful to your system, ask before you leave. Don't be the dude. And with that, I know I wanted to leave a lot of time for questions because we're going to probably have questions. So let's hop straight into those. And thank you, of course, for coming and hanging out today. It's absolutely a pleasure to come and give a presentation for the webinar. All right, let's find, hey there, chat box. All right, there's one chat box. All right, looks like the questions are loading in right now. Perfect. All right, you can ask questions both on YouTube and in the chat box here on Zoom, and those will get forwarded straight over to me, and we will start answering those. All right, I just got pinged one of the first questions. What's the difference between a 2FA service such as Microsoft Authenticator and the RSA tokens? That's actually a great question. So the RSA tokens are basically a hardware-based authenticator. So When you log into a service, it'll ask you for your username and password, and then it will say, enter your RSA PIN. And that's basically just a secondary ID. There are multiple levels of authentication. There's who you are, what you know, what you have, for example. So who you are, that could be any type of biometric assistance that will help you log in, such as a fingerprint or a retinal scanner you see in the James Bond movies, that kind of stuff. You have what you have, like an RFID card or a chip or a CAC card, which is your common access card that the government widely uses. And then what you know, which could be your password, your PIN. And a lot of websites will have you do a username and a password, and then it'll say, what is your unique PIN? Well, RSA interjects themselves with a hardware device that's about the size of a keychain, and when it says enter your PIN, what it's talking about is your RSA token. And it's a 6-digit PIN that changes every 30 seconds, and then you put that in. And then it'll authenticate you based on what you actually have and know. Next question. Good question. What kind of encryption are we using? That's actually a multi-tiered question. If you want to reach out to me at security@crisphealth.org, I'll be more than happy to go over the different encryption types and the strengths that we potentially use as best as I can. I know we have different mechanisms across our environment that create a more tiered approach to security based around the different data feeds that we have. So I'll be more than happy to go over that with you. Next question is, can you give suggestions on staff phishing training, in-person versus online materials used? Yes, absolutely. So staff phishing training is done in several ways. Microsoft, if you have O365 in your environment, has its own threat intelligence platform that allows you to do attacks against your environment. And these are very easy to do, very easy to set up. And if you have any questions on that, there's a ton of open guides. You also have services like PhishMe, Wombat Training, which we use here at CRISP, also has the ability to do phishing tests. In-person versus online, I definitely believe that you could do in-person training, which I think is better. I think that sitting down and talking and giving examples of phishing is way more productive than just having someone go through 20 minutes of a phishing training that they can click through. You're more inclined to retain data and retain knowledge when you have that. And if you would like any of the materials used, I gave a phishing training to Monmouth University last year. I'd be more than happy to send that over to you. How secure are hospital system EMRs for accessing CRISP portal? Absolutely a great question. We can go into more of the hospital system EMRs and how they interact with CRISP portal. Please, on that one, shoot me an email over at CRISP Health, and we'll go a little more in depth to that one. But we definitely have a lot of embedded security over how we interact with our firewalls. We lock down everything outside OCONUS, which is the outside continental US. There's no access to our data center or to those systems from outside this continent. And the next part of that is going to be whitelisting and creating a more stringent system that blacks that down to our region. There's no reason for somebody in Anchorage or Australia to be accessing any of our data. And that goes all the way down to even accessing the website. All right, we got a couple more questions that have been whispered over to me on YouTube. All right, the first question here. What's the most interesting phishing email that I've seen? So there are a lot of, two parts to this question. Are there different phishing emails per year? Absolutely. So a lot of groups will design their phishing tests based on the time of year. So going into the beginning of the year, you're going to see an uptick in tax-related phishing. And these are geared more towards American society as a whole and how we operate. In April, May, June, you're going to see beginning of the summer type phishing. In late July to August, you'll see the back-to-school phishing. And then October, November, December, there's a huge spike in your holiday phishing. So you got a lot of bank account stuff. It's your account has been compromised, unlock your bank account. And people who are going shopping a lot for the holidays will usually be more wary and less security inclined when they're going between store to store, doing Christmas shopping and hitting the Black Friday sales. They'll click the link on their phone, go to a fake Bank of America page and drop their credentials in, thinking that their account's been locked and their account's been now compromised. And one of the most interesting ones that I saw was actually a DHL one, back when DHL started doing their spam phishing. And there's a huge difference between the spam side of things and the phishing side of things. And I know a lot of things get categorized as spam, and a lot of things get categorized as phishing that aren't. You also have malicious emails that are not phishing that have documents with macros in them. We could go into that one a little bit more later if you like. But on the phishing side, the most interesting one I saw was definitely a DHL one that had you log in. And the cool part about this one was it actually went to a page that asked you to not only log in, but when you logged in, it then went to a multi-tiered CAPTCHA. So this showed not only that they were doing phishing, but they were scanning to make sure they weren't sandboxed as well. And that was a really unique thing that I didn't really see that too often with email-based threats. So that was definitely a cool one to look at. Next question is, do I recommend open source tools for communications between doctors? That's a good question. So there's a little bit of a discussed gray area with both open source tools versus COTS solutions. And one of the things that I want to talk about on this one is things like Discord and Slack. I know we use Slack a lot. There are secure ways to do communicator. You have the Skype, the O365 Messenger, you have Microsoft Teams, of course. There are a lot of other ones that you can use. Next question is the HIMSS June Cybersecurity Report. Organizations were warned about APIs being forecast as the next big cyber attack. Is CRISP use API? So how are you defending? So API calls are a huge part of almost every industry, and it's one of the primary ways that you pass data. I don't think they're going to be the next big cyber attack because they've always been a major threatscape. So as you build APIs, one of the things that you want to do is make sure that as you're passing the data between the APIs and you're calling them, and you're calling those data sets, they are both encrypted at the data level, at the VM stack layer level, and at the network level. So you're ensuring that you have both encryption for data at rest and in transit, and we do that from the ground up every time something is developed. Cyber has really cracked down on ensuring that from ground up of we're going to bring in or develop a new API. The second we ask them is, what are your encryption controls? And if they can't provide that, we don't allow it to go forward until they do. We're on top of those all from the ground up, and we're really happy to be driving a better, more secure environment here at CRISP in doing so. Next question. Is there a secure way to report emails? Absolutely. So the best way to report email is, of course, not forwarding it. When you forward an email, what we get from the security side is just an email with your data. And we don't want your data, we want the data of the email that you're sending. So to do this, what you need to do is you need to open up a new email window. So just click new email and drag it over to the side. And then in your mailbox, click and then drag that email over to the new email. And that will make that email an attachment in the new one. And then you send that over. That way we're able to open the original email with all of the relics and the header information there, and it makes it a lot easier for us to analyze it. Now, if you don't do that, then we're going to come back and ask you to do that anyway, because that's the only real way for us to get that data out of the email. All right. No questions over here on Zoom. No questions over here on YouTube. Awesome. All right, one more. There it is. What protections do we use on our website? That's a great question. So our website is our front end. That is how we interact with the world and how the world interacts with us. The Unified Landing Page, or ULP, is a major target for us. It's one of our primary threatscapes that we work really vigilantly to protect and defend. And in doing so, we have a pretty solid web application firewall, or the WAF, that sits in front of it. And what this does is when anything comes to access that, whether it's you guys, or a threat actor, or a tester, or a pen tester, scanners, anyone across the planet, when they go to access it, it gets screened at the packet level for everything that's trying to access it. And then it says, yes, you're eligible to come into our system. No, we don't like you. You're potentially dangerous. You're not authorized. You're from a different part of the world. Instantly denies it. And in doing that, we're able to drop about 99% of the traffic that hits the ULP landing page and the CRISP website. All right, that's the last of our questions today. So again, I want to thank Michelle and Ryan and the marketing team here at CRISP for throwing the webinar series together this summer. It's been an absolute awesome time, I know, across the board for all of us to be able to share our data and our passions with you guys. Next time, CRISP Senior Director of Product Development will talk about the ULP landing page, which is the Unified Landing Pages, what data you can find there, how it can be helpful to all healthcare professionals across the board, and give you tips and tricks for navigating and customizing the view to your liking. So thank you guys for coming and hanging out this Wednesday. Hope the rest of you guys have a week, and we will see you guys next week for our next webinar.